Commander Ji-won Kim stood on the bridge of the human warship Defiant Thunder, watching the alien space station grow larger on the main screen. The station looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space, with metal petals that glowed with soft blue light. This was Border Station Theta 7, where humans would meet the Galactic Council for the first time. "Distance to station?" Ji-won asked her crew. 5,000 kilometers in closing, Commander," replied Nari Song from her position at the communications desk. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as alien signals filled the ship's speakers with strange music-like sounds. Behind Ji-won, Ambassador Hyun-soo Park adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform for the 10th time in an hour. He was nervous, and it showed. This meeting would decide if humans could join the galaxy's biggest alliance of alien races. After 200 years of space travel, humanity had finally found other intelligent life. "Commander Kim, we're getting a transmission from the station," Nari reported. "They want to talk." "Put it on screen," Ji-won ordered. The main display changed to show a creature that looked like it was made of living metal. Its head had 6 eyes arranged in a circle, and its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. "Welcome, humans. I am Scan Master Vorthak of the Zerion race. We must examine your vessel before you can dock with our station. This is standard procedure for all ships entering Galactic Council space." Ambassador Hyun-soo stepped forward. "We understand, Scan Master Vorthak. We're ready to cooperate with your security protocols." Vorthak's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "Good. We will now begin the deep scan process. Please remain still and do not interfere with our scanning systems." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell quiet except for the humming of the ship's engines. Ji-won had read about alien scanning technology in the mission briefings. It was supposed to be incredibly advanced, able to see through any material, and analyze everything about a ship in minutes. On the alien station, Vorthak moved to his scanning chamber, a room filled with floating holographic displays and crystalline computers. He had performed this scan thousands of times on ships from hundreds of different species. The Zerion race was known throughout the galaxy for their logical minds and perfect analysis abilities. Nothing escaped their scans. Vorthak's assistant, a younger Zerion named Kelthax, prepared the scanning array. "Beginning deep scan of human vessel," Kelthax announced. "All systems are functioning normally." The massive scanning beam shot out from the station toward the Defiant Thunder. It was invisible to human eyes, but Vorthak could see it on his instruments as it touched the human ship's outer hull. The beam easily passed through the metal, as expected. "Scan penetrating outer armor," Kelthax reported. "Analyzing hull composition. Strange. This metal is very thick but not very advanced. Why would they make it so heavy?" Vorthak watched the data flow across his screens. The human ship was indeed unusual. Most advanced species used light, strong materials for their ships. But humans seemed to have just piled on layer after layer of thick, crude metal. "Continue the scan," Vorthak ordered. "Let's see their weapons and technology." The scanning beam pushed deeper into the ship, past the hull and into the internal sections. This was where Vorthak expected to see the usual layout. Clean corridors, organized weapon systems, logical crew quarters arranged for maximum efficiency. Instead, his screens filled with chaos. What is this?" Kelthax stammered, staring at the displays. The human ship's interior made no sense. Corridors twisted and turned for no reason. Rooms were different sizes and shapes, as if someone had just stuck them wherever they would fit. Cables and pipes ran everywhere, often taking the longest possible path between 2 points. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the weapons. "Kelthax, are you seeing this correctly?" Vorthak asked. "These humans appear to have weapons made from mining equipment?" "Yes, Scanmaster. Their main guns are modified asteroid mining lasers. Their missile systems use cargo transport tubes, and this..." Kelthax paused, his metallic face showing confusion. This weapon appears to be a construction tool designed to break up space, rocks, but they've connected it to their targeting system. Vorthak studied the scans more carefully. In his 300 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had taken tools meant for peaceful work and turned them into weapons. Not elegant, purpose-built weapons like other species used, but crude, powerful devices that looked like they might break at any moment. "Continue scanning," he ordered. "Let's examine their crew areas." The beam moved to the sections where the humans lived and worked. What Vorthak saw there made even less sense. The crew quarters were tiny, barely big enough for one person, yet the humans had somehow crammed personal belongings, pictures, and even plants into these small spaces. Some rooms had colorful decorations that served no practical purpose. "Scan Master," Kelthak said quietly. "The scanning AI is starting to show error messages." Vorthak looked at his main computer display. Warning symbols flashed red across the screen. The AI that controlled their scanning system was designed to analyze and categorize everything it found. But now it was showing messages that roughly translated to analysis incomplete and pattern recognition failure. "What does that mean?" Vorthak asked. "I think," Kelthak said slowly, "our computer cannot understand how this ship works. The design is too random, too illogical. The AI keeps trying to find patterns and purposes, but everything contradicts everything else." Vorthak tried to push the scan deeper, hoping to find some kind of central control system that would make sense of the chaos. Instead, he found the ship's bridge, where Commander Ji-won Kim was calmly giving orders to her crew. The scanning computer tried to analyze the humans themselves. It measured their brain activity, their physical capabilities, their emotional states. But instead of clear, logical patterns like other species showed, the humans displayed something the computer had never encountered before. "Kelthax, look at these readings," Vorthak said. "The humans appear to be thinking about multiple things at the same time. Their emotional centers are active while they make logical decisions. How is this possible?" The younger Zarion studied the data. "Perhaps they are malfunctioning?" "No," Vorthak said thoughtfully. "They're functioning perfectly well. They're just different." Suddenly, all the scanning displays went dark. Emergency lights flashed in the scanning chamber as the main AI system shut itself down. "What happened?" Vorthak demanded. Kelthax worked frantically at his controls. "The scanning AI has stopped all analysis functions. It's displaying a message: recommended course of action, cease scanning immediately, further analysis inadvisable." Vorthak stared at the dark screens. In 300 years, he had never seen the scanning AI refuse to complete an analysis. The system was designed to scan anything, understand anything, categorize anything, but somehow the human ship had broken it. "Sir," Kelthak said quietly, "what do we tell the Council? Our scan failed. We know almost nothing about their actual capabilities." Vorthak considered this. The human ship appeared crude and chaotic, but something about it had overwhelmed their most advanced analysis systems. That was either very good or very bad for the humans' application to join the Galactic Council. "We tell them the truth," Vorthak finally said. "We tell them that human ships are different, and that perhaps some things are better left unscanned on." The Defiant Thunder, Commander Ji-won Kim noticed that the strange tingling sensation that had filled the ship during the scan had suddenly stopped. "Commander," Narration reported, "the aliens have stopped scanning us. They're sending a message that we're cleared to dock." Ji-won nodded, but she wondered why the scan had ended so abruptly. She had no way of knowing that she commanded the first ship in galactic history to make a Zarion scanning AI give up in defeat. Ambassador Hyun-Soo Park walked through the crystal corridors of Border Station Theta 7, following a floating blue light that served as his guide. The station was beautiful but strange, with walls that seemed to grow like living things and floors that felt soft under his feet. Everything was perfectly clean and organized, very different from human stations. He entered a large oval room where 3 alien beings waited for him. The first was Thylax, who looked like a walking piece of clear crystal with light flowing through her body. The second was Mordun, a collection of small bug-like creatures that moved together as one being and spoke with many voices at the same time. The third was someone Hyunsu recognized from his briefings, Council Speaker Velthar, a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 arms. "Welcome, Ambassador Park," Thylax said, her voice sounding like musical notes. "We hope your journey was comfortable." "Thank you," Hyunsu replied, sitting in a chair that adjusted itself to fit his body perfectly. "We're honored to be here." Mordun's many voices spoke together. "We must ask about the scanning incident. Our records show this is the first time a Xerion deep scan has failed to complete. Do your ships use some form of advanced stealth technology?" Hyunsu looked confused. "Stealth technology? No, not that I know of. Our ships are actually pretty basic compared to what we've seen of your technology." "Maybe there was some kind of technical problem?" The 3 aliens exchanged glances. Velthar leaned forward with 2 of his 4 arms resting on the table. "Perhaps we could better understand if one of your technical specialists could explain. Your ship design to our engineers? It would help with future diplomatic visits." Meanwhile, on the Defiant Thunder, Chief Engineer Minho Choi was getting ready for the strangest presentation of his career. Commander Ji-won Kim had told him that the aliens wanted to understand human ship design, so he had gathered some basic technical drawings and specifications. "Remember," Ji-won said as they walked to the transport shuttle, "these aliens are supposed to be incredibly advanced. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Just be honest about how our ships work." Minho laughed. "Commander, if they're that advanced, they're going to think we're idiots when they see what we've done to the Defiant Thunder." The Alien Engineering Conference was held in a huge dome-shaped room filled with the galaxy's smartest beings. Minho saw creatures made of metal and crystal, floating gas clouds with glowing centers, and beings that looked like living mathematics equations. All of them had built ships that could travel between stars, and now they wanted to learn from humans. A tall, silver alien with 12 arms introduced itself as Chief Engineer Zixtar. "We are very interested in human engineering philosophy," it said. "Your ships appear to use design principles we have not encountered before." Minho set up his presentation screen and cleared his throat. "Well, I should probably start by explaining that we don't really have one design philosophy. We kind of just build things as we need them." The alien engineers leaned forward with interest. This was already different from what they expected. "Let me show you the Defiant Thunder's power system," Minho continued, bringing up a diagram that looked like a child's drawing compared to the elegant alien displays he had seen. "We have 3 main power cores, but each one is different because they were built at different times by different teams." A crystalline engineer spoke up. "Different? But surely they are designed to work together efficiently?" "Not really," Minho said cheerfully. "The first core is from an old mining ship. The second one came from a cargo transport that got scrapped. The third one we built ourselves, but we ran out of proper materials, so we used whatever we could find." The room fell silent. An alien that looked like a floating mathematical equation made some rapid calculations and then made a sound like a broken whistle. "But how does this work?" asked Zixtar. 3 different power systems with different specifications should create harmonic conflicts and energy cascades." Minho shrugged. "Yeah, they do. So we built dampeners and rerouters and backup systems to handle all the problems. And then we built backups for the backups because the first backups sometimes break too." He brought up the next slide showing the ship's weapon systems. The alien engineers stared in what Minho hoped was amazement and not horror. "Our main guns are modified asteroid mining lasers," he explained. We took out the safety systems and the precision controls and added bigger power feeds. They're not very accurate, but they hit really hard." "You removed the safety systems?" squeaked a small, furry alien engineer. "Had to," Minho said. "The safety systems wouldn't let us fire at ships, only at rocks. So we tricked the computers into thinking everything is a rock. Works pretty well, actually." A creature made of flowing liquid raised what might have been a hand. "What about your defensive systems? Surely they follow standard galactic principles?" Minho grinned. "We don't really have standard defensive systems. Instead, we made the whole ship really, really hard to break. The hull is about 10 times thicker than it needs to be because we kept adding more armor every time something went wrong." "But that makes the ship slow and inefficient," protested a gas cloud engineer. "Sure does," Minho agreed. "So we added more engines. Different kinds of engines, from different manufacturers, all connected to the same control system with a lot of creative wiring." He showed them the ship's layout, and several aliens made distressed noises. The corridors twisted and turned in seemingly random directions. Rooms were different sizes and shapes. Critical systems were scattered throughout the ship with no apparent logic. "Why is your medical bay next to the weapons storage?" asked Thylex, who had come to observe the presentation. "Because that's where we had space when we needed a medical bay," Minho explained. "The ship was originally designed to carry cargo, so we just converted cargo holds into whatever we needed. Medical bay, crew quarters, recreational areas, storage, for our emergency supplies." "Emergency supplies?" "Yeah, we keep about 6 months' worth of food, water, spare parts, and entertainment materials. Plus tools, weapons, medical supplies, and backup computers. Oh, and we have a small workshop where we can build new parts or fix broken ones." The alien engineers were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Zixtar spoke. "This is highly inefficient. Why do you carry so much extra equipment?" "Because stuff breaks," Minho said simply. "Space is dangerous, and we're usually very far from any repair stations. So we carry everything we might need to fix anything that might go wrong. But your computer systems must optimize for efficiency," said the mathematical equation alien, Minho. Laughed. "Our computers are actually pretty simple. They mostly just keep track of where everything is and make sure the different systems don't interfere with each other too much. The real optimization is done by the crew." "The crew?" "Yeah. People are really good at solving problems that computers can't handle. When something weird happens, we figure out a way to fix it or work around it. Sometimes we come up with solutions that work better than the original design. An engineer that looked like a collection of floating geometric shapes pulsed with confused colors. But this approach would create millions of possible failure points and system interactions. How do you predict and prevent problems?" "We don't," Minho said cheerfully. "We just fix them when they happen. Humans are pretty good at improvising." The silence in the room was so complete that Minho could hear the station's life support systems humming. Finally, a small voice from the back asked, "Does this actually work?" "The Defiant Thunder has been in service for 15 years, Minho replied. "She's been in battles, explored unknown systems, survived equipment failures, asteroid impacts, and one time she got struck by lightning in a nebula. She's never failed to complete a mission." The alien engineers looked at each other with expressions that ranged from confusion to something that might have been fear. Their computers were probably already running calculations, trying to figure out how such a chaotic system could possibly function. But the calculations kept coming back with the same result. It shouldn't work. But somehow it did. Chief Engineer Zixtar finally found his voice. "Thank you for this educational presentation, Engineer Choi. We will need some time to process this information." As Minho packed up his materials, he noticed that many of the alien engineers were already leaving, their faces showing deep concentration. A few were frantically making notes, probably trying to figure out how to redesign their perfectly efficient ships to be more like the chaotic human vessels. Minho smiled. to himself. He was pretty sure the aliens thought humans were either crazy or geniuses, maybe both. What he didn't know was that several alien engineering computers had already started showing error messages, trying and failing to analyze the elegant chaos of human design. And in the depths of the station's central AI, the first, algorithms were beginning to conclude that human engineering was not just different, it was impossible. Dr. Sumin Lee sat in a comfortable chair in the station's psychological evaluation center, surrounded by aliens who studied minds for a living. The room was designed to be calming, with soft lights and walls that changed color slowly. But the aliens in the room looked anything but calm. The lead psychologist was a being called Zephyrian Prime, who looked like a tall, thin humanoid made of shifting silver light. Zephyrians were famous throughout the galaxy for their ability to read minds and understand the psychology of any species. They had studied thousands of different alien races and could predict behavior patterns with perfect accuracy. "Dr. Lee," Zephyrian Prime said, his voice echoing strangely, "we need to understand human psychology for our diplomatic records. This is standard procedure for all species seeking council membership." Sumin nodded. "Of course. What would you like to know?" "Let's start with something simple," said another psychologist, a creature that looked like a floating brain in a glass dome. "How do humans make decisions? Do you use pure logic like the Xerions, or emotional consensus like the empathic collective?" Sumin thought about this. "Well, we use both, actually. And neither. It's complicated." The floating brain pulsed with confusion. "Both and neither. Please explain." "Humans think with logic and emotion at the same time," Sumin said. "We can make a completely logical decision while also feeling very emotional about it. Or we can make an emotional decision and then use logic to justify it. Sometimes we make decisions that are both logical and emotional, and sometimes we make decisions that are neither." Zephyrian Prime's light flickered rapidly, which Sumin guessed meant he was confused. "This is not possible. Logic and emotion are opposite processes. A being cannot use both simultaneously." "Humans do it all the time," Sumin replied. "For example, a human parent might logically know that their child should be independent, but emotionally want to protect them from all danger, so they make decisions that balance both needs." A third psychologist, who looked like a collection of floating crystal spheres, chimed in with a sound like wind chimes. "But this would create constant internal conflict. How do humans function with such contradictory thought processes?" "The conflict is part of how we function," Sumin explained. "It makes us more flexible. We can change our minds quickly when situations change, because we're always considering multiple possibilities." The alien psychologists exchanged glances. This was already more complex than they had expected. "Let's try a different approach," Zephyrian Prime said. "We would like to perform direct psychological scans on some of your crew members. This will help us understand human thought patterns." Sumin agreed, and soon 2 crew members from the Defiant Thunder were brought to the evaluation center. Taehyung Yoon was the ship's weapons officer, a quiet man with steady hands and sharp eyes. Nari Song was the communications specialist, friendly and quick-thinking. "This will not hurt," Zephyrian Prime assured them as he prepared his mental scanning equipment. "We will simply observe your thought processes while you perform some simple tasks." The first test was basic. The aliens asked Taehyung to look at pictures of different alien species and describe what he saw. As he spoke, the Zephyrian scanning equipment recorded his thoughts. Within minutes, warning lights were flashing on the psychological monitoring systems. "What's wrong?" Sumin asked. The floating brain was spinning rapidly in its dome. His thoughts are contradictory. When he sees a picture of a warrior species, he simultaneously thinks potential threat and might be friendly. He prepares for combat while also preparing for conversation. "That makes sense," Sumin said. "Taehyung is a weapons officer. He has to be ready for anything." But these are opposite mental states, Zephyrian Prime protested. How can he be suspicious and trusting at the same time? Tae-hyung spoke up. It's not about being suspicious or trusting. It's about being prepared. I hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. That way, I'm ready for whatever happens. The crystal sphere psychologist made a sound like breaking glass. Our computers cannot process this. His brain shows activity in both aggressive and peaceful response centers simultaneously. This should cause immediate psychological breakdown. But I feel fine, Tae-hyung said, looking confused. They tried the same test with Nari Song, with even more disturbing results. When shown pictures of alien technology, her thoughts showed curiosity about how it worked, fear that it might be dangerous, excitement about learning from it, and sadness that humans were so far behind technologically, all at the same time. Stop the scan, the floating brain requested. Our analysis computers are overheating. Zephyrian Prime looked at his instruments in disbelief. In 3,000 years of psychological study, we have never encountered minds that operate in multiple emotional states simultaneously. How do you make decisions with so many conflicting thoughts? Nari laughed. We just sort of weigh everything together and pick what feels right at the moment. Sometimes we change our minds. Later when we get new information. What feels right? Repeated the crystal psychologist. You make important decisions based on feelings rather than logical analysis? Not just feelings, Nari explained. We use logic too, and experience and intuition and advice from other people and sometimes just gut instinct. We consider everything together. The alien psychologists were silent for a long moment. Finally, Zephyrian Prime spoke. We would like to observe your crew during normal activities. Perhaps seeing humans in their natural environment will help us understand. They were given access to observe the human ship remotely. What they saw made even less sense than the individual scans. In the ship's mess hall, they watched human crew, members eating together and talking. The conversations jumped randomly from technical discussions about ship repairs to jokes about popular entertainment to serious planning for diplomatic meetings. The humans seemed to switch between topics without any logical connection. Why are they discussing engine maintenance and birthday parties in the same conversation? Asked the floating brain. Because both are important to them, Su-min explained. Humans are social creatures. We share our daily concerns with each other, whether they're work-related or personal. In the ship's recreation area, they observed humans playing games that seemed to have no purpose except entertainment. But the aliens noticed that these games involved complex strategic thinking, teamwork, and quick decision-making. They are training, Zephyrian Prime realized, but they call it fun, and they enjoy it. They are simultaneously working and playing. The psychological monitoring systems were now showing critical error messages. The alien computers were designed to categorize behavior as either work or recreation, either logical or emotional, either individual or group-focused. But humans seemed to be everything at once. The final test came when they observed the humans. During a minor emergency, a power fluctuation caused temporary failures in several ship systems. The alien psychologist watched in amazement as the human crew responded. Commander Ji-won Kim calmly gave orders while also showing concern for her crew's safety. Engineer Min-ho Choi worked frantically to fix the problem while cracking jokes to keep everyone's spirits up. The crew worked together efficiently while also checking on each other's emotional well-being. They are being logical and emotional, individual and collective, serious and playful, all at the same time, whispered the crystal psychologist. How is this possible? But the most disturbing part came when they observed how the humans talked about the aliens themselves. The crew showed curiosity about alien cultures, respect for alien achievements, and genuine friendship toward the aliens they had met. But they also maintained a healthy wariness and continued to prepare for the possibility that negotiations might fail. They like us and don't trust us simultaneously, Zephyrian Prime said in wonder. They are prepared to be our friends or our enemies, and they see no contradiction in this. Two of the psychological analysis computers shut down completely, unable to process the paradoxes of human thought. A third computer began displaying error messages that roughly translated to logic failure, impossible behavioral patterns detected. Chuck the T, crystal psychologist's spheres began spinning chaotically. We must stop these observations. Our analysis systems cannot handle human psychology. It's too complex, too contradictory, too flexible. Zephyrian Prime agreed. His silver light was flickering erratically, a sign of deep psychological stress in his species. I have scanned the minds of over 10,000 different species, but humans. Humans think in ways that our science cannot explain or predict. Dr. Suman Lee watched the alien psychologists struggle with their failing computers and overloaded analysis systems. She felt a little sorry for them. They were trying so hard to understand something that even humans didn't fully understand about themselves. Maybe, she suggested gently. Some things don't need to be analyzed and categorized. Maybe it's okay to just accept that humans are complicated. But as she spoke, she realized that this was exactly the problem. The aliens needed to understand and predict the behavior of species they dealt with. It was how their entire galactic civilization worked, and humans had just proven to be completely unpredictable. War Admiral Krextar stood in the center of the Galactic Council's most advanced war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and tactical simulations. The room was filled with the galaxy's greatest military minds, beings who had studied warfare for thousands of years and defeated countless enemies through superior strategy and technology. Krextar himself was a member of the Draknari race, warriors who looked like walking tanks made of living stone. His people had never lost a war, and he had personally commanded fleets in over 50 major battles. But today, he was worried. The humans have agreed to participate in tactical exercises, he announced to the assembled military leaders. The Council wants to understand their combat capabilities before deciding on their membership application. A spindly, insect-like being called General Chitter clicked his mandibles nervously. After the scanning and psychological evaluation failures, perhaps we should be more careful. These humans seem to break our analysis systems. That's exactly why we need to test them, Krextar replied. War is the ultimate test of any species. In combat, all pretenses fall away, and you see what a race truly is. Our tactical computers can analyze any possible strategy. We will finally understand how humans think. The war room's central AI, known as the strategic mind, was the most advanced military computer in the galaxy. It had analyzed every known form of warfare and could predict battle outcomes with perfect accuracy. Today, it would face its first encounter with human military thinking. Captain Doyen Kang and Tactical Officer Yunbi Zhang arrived from the Defiant Thunder, escorted by floating security drones. Doyen was a calm, experienced officer who had fought in several battles against space pirates. Yunbi was younger but brilliant, known for her ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems. Welcome to our tactical center, Krextar said, gesturing to the massive holographic display table. We have prepared several wargame scenarios to test your skills. These are friendly exercises, of course. Of course, Doyen agreed, though he noticed that the alien military officers were watching him very carefully. The first scenario appeared in the holographic display, a simple space battle between equal fleets. The strategic mind had calculated that this battle should last exactly 47 minutes and end with the side that made the first tactical error losing 60% of their ships. You will command the Red Fleet, Krextar explained. We will command the Blue Fleet. Begin when ready. Doyen studied the holographic battlefield for about 30 seconds, then turned to Yunbi. What do you think? Standard formation, she replied. They're expecting us to fight conventionally, but look at this asteroid field on the edge of the battle zone. Interesting. Doyon said. He turned to the alien commanders. Are there any restrictions on where we can move our ships? No restrictions except the boundaries of the simulation, General Chitter answered. Good. Doyon began giving orders, moving his fleet toward the asteroid field instead of engaging the enemy directly. The strategic mind immediately flagged this as an error. Moving away from the enemy was a sign of weakness or cowardice. The computer predicted that the Blue Fleet would follow and destroy the retreating humans easily. But as the human ships reached the asteroids, something unexpected happened. Instead of hiding behind the rocks, they began collecting them. "What are they doing?" asked Admiral Velthon, a gaseous being who commanded the ethereal fleet. On the holographic display, human ships were using their mining equipment to gather small asteroids and load them into their cargo holds. The strategic mind tried to analyze this behavior but could find no tactical purpose for collecting space rocks during a battle. Maybe they're confused about the rules? Suggested General Chitter. Then the human fleet turned around and charged, straight at the alien ships. As they approached, something impossible happened. The humans began launching the asteroids they had collected. They're using space rocks as weapons? Admiral Velthon gasped. The improvised asteroid bombardment completely disrupted the alien fleet's formation. The strategic mind had never calculated defenses against rocks being thrown at high speed, because no civilized species had ever tried such a crude tactic. But it got worse. As the battle continued, the humans began using their damaged ships as weapons. When one of their vessels lost its engines, instead of retreating for repairs, they aimed it at an enemy ship and abandoned it just before impact. "Stop the simulation!" Krextar ordered. The holographic battlefield froze. The alien military leaders stared at the results in disbelief. The human fleet had won decisively, despite being outnumbered and outgunned. They had done it by using tactics that no computer had ever imagined. "How did you know that would work?" Admiral Velthon asked. Doyon shrugged. "We didn't know it would work. We just saw an opportunity and took it. Asteroids are everywhere in space and they hit just as hard. As expensive missiles if you throw them fast enough. But this violates basic principles of space warfare," protested General Chitter. "You wasted valuable ships by using them as projectiles." "We saved more ships than we lost," Yunbi pointed out. "And crew members are more valuable than ships anyway. We made sure everyone got to escape pods before impact. The strategic mind was displaying error messages across multiple screens. It had tried to calculate the probability of the human tactics succeeding, but kept getting results that said such tactics should never work. Yet somehow they had. Krextar decided to try a more complex scenario. "Let's test something that requires long-term strategic thinking," he said. "This simulation shows a month-long campaign with multiple battles, supply lines, and strategic objectives. The second war game was a masterpiece of military planning. It involved complex logistics, careful resource management, and precise timing. The strategic mind had calculated optimal strategies for every possible situation that might arise. The humans approached this scenario completely differently than expected. Instead of creating detailed, long-term plans, they seemed to make decisions moment by moment, adapting constantly to changing conditions. When their supply lines were threatened, instead of defending them, they abandoned traditional logistics entirely. Human ships began living off captured enemy supplies and salvage from destroyed vessels. When they ran out of proper weapons, they improvised new ones from whatever materials they could find. "They're not following any strategic doctrine," observed Admiral Velthon. "They change their entire battle plan every few days." "It's not random," Krextar realized, studying the patterns. "They're adapting to what we do. Every time we think we understand their strategy, they change it." The strategic mind was working frantically, trying to predict what the humans would do next. But every prediction failed because the humans kept doing things that made no logical sense. In one battle, they retreated from a position they could have held, apparently giving up an important strategic advantage. But 3 days later, it became clear they had retreated to set up a trap that destroyed an entire enemy fleet. In another engagement, they divided their forces in a way that should have made them vulnerable to defeat in detail. Instead, the scattered human ships somehow coordinated to hit the alien fleet from 6 directions at once. They're thinking like a hive mind, but they're not a hive mind, General Chitter observed. How do they coordinate so well without central command? The answer came when the aliens observed human communications during battle. Instead of formal military orders, the humans were having conversations. They shared information, discussed options, and made group decisions in real time. "Captain, I've got 3 enemy ships moving toward Sector 7. They heard one human pilot report. "Copy that. Anyone in position to intercept?" came the reply. "I can swing around, but I'll need cover. We've got your back. Go for it." Multiple individuals making independent decisions that somehow work together, Krextar mused. Like a school of fish, but with weapons and intelligence. The final test was the most challenging. A scenario where the humans were vastly outnumbered and trapped in a system with no escape routes. The strategic mind calculated that surrender was the only logical option. The humans did not surrender. Instead, they did something that broke every rule of military logic. They began helping their enemies. When alien ships were damaged in battle, human vessels moved in to rescue survivors and provide medical aid. When enemy supply ships were destroyed, humans shared their own supplies with stranded alien crews. "What are they doing?" Admiral Velthon asked in confusion. "They're helping the people they're fighting against?" "It's a psychological warfare tactic," General Chitter suggested. "They're trying to demoralize us." But it wasn't psychological warfare. The humans genuinely cared about preventing unnecessary deaths, even among their enemies. They fought hard when they had to fight, but they also showed mercy when they could. The effect on the alien forces was devastating, but not in any way the strategic mind could calculate. Alien crews began hesitating before firing on human ships. Some enemy commanders started secretly hoping the humans would win. Several alien vessels actually switched sides in the middle of battle. The war game ended with the humans achieving a complete victory despite being outnumbered 10-1. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from over 300 species, but it had never been quieter. Council Speaker Velthar stood at the central podium, his 4 purple arms spread wide as he addressed the gathering. Behind him, holographic displays showed the symbols of every member species in the galaxy's greatest alliance. Ambassador Hyunsu Park sat in the human delegation area, trying not to show his nervousness. After days of tests, evaluations, and simulations, the Council was finally ready to vote on humanity's application for membership. But something felt wrong. The usual debate and discussion that preceded such votes was absent. Instead, there was just silence. "The Council has completed its evaluation of the human species," Velthar announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "We have examined their technology, psychology, and military capabilities. We are now ready to vote on their application." Hyunsu had expected this moment to involve long speeches about human achievements, careful negotiations about trade agreements, and detailed discussions about territorial boundaries. Instead, Velthar seemed to be rushing through the formalities. "Before we vote," came a voice from the Zerion delegation, "I believe we should discuss the unusual results of our evaluations." Scanmaster Vorthak rose from his seat, his metallic body reflecting the chamber's lights. "The human vessel could not be properly scanned. Our most advanced analysis systems failed to complete their assessment." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. This was unprecedented in Council history. Chief Engineer Zixtar from the Technical Collective spoke next. "Human engineering principles defy logical analysis. Their ships should not function. Yet they operate more reliably than many of our own designs. The murmur grew louder. Representatives began exchanging glances with their neighbors. Zephyrian Prime's silver light flickered as he addressed the assembly. Human psychology cannot be predicted or categorized. They think in ways that our computers cannot process. Now, the chamber was buzzing with quiet conversations. Many delegates were accessing their personal data tablets, reviewing the reports from the human evaluations. War Admiral Krextar stood slowly, his stone-like features grim. Human military tactics are completely unpredictable. They won every wargame scenario using methods that should not work. The buzzing stopped. The assembly fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, heavier, more worried. Council Speaker Velthar looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces showing various expressions of concern, confusion, and something that might have been fear. The evaluation reports are troubling, he said carefully. Not because humans are hostile or dangerous in the traditional sense, but because they are unpredictable. Ambassador Hyunsu finally found his voice. With respect, Council Speaker, unpredictability isn't necessarily a bad thing. Humans have been exploring space for over 200 years without attacking anyone. We've helped other species when we've encountered them. We're not warlike. That's exactly the problem, said a delegate from the Logical Collective, a species that looked like walking mathematical equations. You're not warlike, but you're more effective at warfare than most warrior species. You're not aggressive, but you're impossible to predict or counter. You help your enemies while fighting them, which makes no logical sense, but somehow works. Another delegate, this one resembling a giant flower with crystalline petals, spoke up. Our analysis systems have never encountered anything like human behavior. You break every model we use to understand and predict species' actions. Yunsu was beginning to understand what was happening. You're not afraid of us because you think we're dangerous. You're afraid of us because you can't understand us. Precisely, Velthar confirmed. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace through understanding. We study each species, learn their motivations, predict their behavior, and prevent conflicts through careful diplomacy. But humans are impossible to study. A delegate from the Hive Collective, made up of thousands of small insect-like beings, spoke with their combined voice. How can we maintain galactic peace with a species whose actions we cannot predict? The same way you maintain peace with any other species, Hyunsu replied. Through communication, cooperation, and mutual respect. You don't need to predict everything we do. You just need to trust that we want the same things you do: peace, prosperity, and the chance to explore the galaxy. But trust requires understanding, protested the crystalline flower delegate. How can we trust beings whose thoughts we cannot read, whose ships we cannot scan, whose tactics we cannot counter? War Admiral Krextar spoke again. In the military simulations, humans consistently chose moral actions over tactical advantages. They saved enemy lives even when it put their own forces at risk. This behavior is completely illogical from a strategic standpoint, yet it led to victory in every scenario. Maybe, suggested a delegate who looked like a floating jellyfish. The problem is not with humans, but with our need to understand everything. Perhaps some species are meant to remain mysterious. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued that mysterious species were too dangerous to allow into the council. Others pointed out that humans had done nothing hostile or threatening during their evaluation period. A few suggested that maybe the council's analysis methods were simply inadequate. Through it all, Ambassador Hyunsu noticed something interesting. Despite their concerns about unpredictability, none of the delegates seemed actually afraid of humans. Confused, yes. Frustrated, certainly, but not afraid. After hours of debate, Council Speaker Velthar called for order. The Council will now vote on the human application for membership. However, Given the unique circumstances, this will be a conditional membership with special provisions. The voting began, and Yunsu watched as species after species cast their ballots. To his surprise, the results were overwhelmingly positive, not because the aliens understood humans, but because they had decided that understanding wasn't necessary. The vote is unanimous, Velthar announced. Humanity is accepted into the Galactic Council with full membership privileges. Yunsu felt a wave of relief, but Velthar wasn't finished. However, there will be special protocols for human vessels and personnel. These protocols are designed to accommodate human uniqueness. The first protocol was announced by Scan Master Vorthak. Human ships will be exempt from standard deep scanning procedures. Basic safety scans only will be performed at border stations. Chief Engineer Zixtar followed. Human engineering methods will not be subject to standard safety and efficiency regulations. Their ships will be certified on a case-by-case basis. Zephyrian Prime's announcement was the most significant. Human personnel will not be required to undergo standard psychological evaluations for diplomatic or military positions. Their mental states will be considered classified. War Admiral Krextar made the final announcement. Human military vessels will not participate in standard tactical exercises with other Council fleets. Joint operations will be planned on a mission-specific basis. Yunsu realized what was happening. The aliens weren't just accepting humanity into the Council. They were essentially agreeing to never try to analyze humans again. It was an unprecedented arrangement in galactic history. These protocols, Velthar explained, are not restrictions on human activities. They are protections for our analysis systems and personnel. We have discovered that human unpredictability can cause significant malfunctions in our computers and psychological stress in our evaluation teams. After the ceremony, Hyunsu found himself in a private meeting with the Council's senior leadership. The formal diplomatic language was dropped, and the aliens spoke more honestly. "We want to be clear," Velthar said. "We're not afraid of humans in the traditional sense, but you represent something entirely new in our experience. A species that functions outside our understanding of how intelligent life should work." "Is that really so bad?" Hyunsu asked. Zephyrian Prime answered, "It's not bad. It's just challenging. For thousands of years, we've maintained peace by being able to predict and understand each other. Humans force us to consider a different approach, trusting without understanding." "The truth is," War Admiral Krextar added, "humans might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Most of our conflicts come from misunderstandings between species who think too differently. But humans seem to get along with everyone, despite being more different than any of us." As the Defiant Thunder prepared to leave the station and return to Earth with news of humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Council, Commander Jiwon Kim received one final message from Scan Master Vorthak. "Commander Kim, I want you to know that your ship has been classified as a Level 1 anomaly in our database. This means it is officially impossible to scan, analyze, or understand using conventional methods." "Is that good or bad?" Jiwon asked. "It is unique," Vorthak replied. "In 300 years of service, I have never encountered anything unique. It has been educational." Chief Engineer Minho Choi was in the engine room making final preparations for departure when he received a message from Chief Engineer Zixtar.